Welcome to Upon This Rock, our midweek Bible study from Solid Rock Drogheda. As always, we're going to start off with a song from Janice. Janice is going to sing us a worship song, one she wrote herself actually. And then after that, we're going to come back together to look at the Word of God. And we're working our way through Mark's Gospel. It's a verse by verse study. We just take each verse at a time. But let's worship with Janice first.
Casting all my cares on you alone, knowing you are there in every storm. You're my anchor, you're my healer, you give me strength to be more than conqueror. So I will give you all my praise. I will worship, though the storm may come. I will worship with the rising sun, for you are worthy to be praised. I will bow down at your feet, oh Lord. I surrender my heart and life, oh Lord, and so forever we'll be together in perfect love. Casting all my cares on you alone, knowing you are there in every storm. You're my anchor, you're my healer, you give me strength to be more than conqueror. So I will give you all my praise. I will worship, though the storm may come. I will worship with the rising sun, for you are worthy to be praised. I will bow down at your feet, oh Lord. I surrender my heart and life, oh Lord, and so forever we'll be together in perfect love. Casting all my cares on you, knowing you are there in every storm. You're my anchor, you're my healer, you give me strength to be more than conqueror. So I will give you all my praise. I will give you all my praise.
Thank you to Janice. So I'm delighted to welcome you to join me here in my study. We're looking at Mark's Gospel. As I said, it's a verse by verse study, and we're actually into chapter 5 now. This is episode 10 of our verse by verse study of Mark's Gospel. And so we're joining it at chapter 5, verse 1. It says, they went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes or the Gadarenes, depending on which manuscript we look at. And when Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. Now, in our last study, we saw about Jesus' authority over the natural realm, over nature, over the storm. And now we're about to see his authority over the supernatural realm. At the end of chapter 4, he calmed an untamable storm, and now he is delivering an untamable man. And now, reasons why some manuscripts have it as the Gadarenes or as the Gerasenes is Gadara was the major city in this region. It was part of a much larger region, which was called Decapolis, the 10 cities, but Gadara was one of those 10 cities. So this was the region of Gadara, or the Gadarenes, but there is a location within that territory called Keresa, which is actually the only place that would suit and be the actual location of what happened here, because it's where hills slope steeply down to the water and where there's a number of limestone caves that used to be used as tombs. So depending if you're talking about the wider city, it'd be like the greater Dublin area when you talk about the Gadarenes. But if you're talking about the individual village or location, like if you were saying, I don't know, Swords or Skerries, then that would be like saying Keresa, the region of the Gerasenes. And so whatever name you want to use, it's directly across the Sea of Galilee from Capernaum. And what had happened was Jesus had taken the initiative. Remember, we said that last time around. Jesus took the initiative. It wasn't the disciples' idea to cross the sea. Jesus took the initiative because he had somehow heard the cry from the heart of a demonized man and was now coming to the rescue. So verse 2. Verse 3, this man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. Now, in Luke's gospel, because Luke records this same incident, we're told that the demon used to seize the man at many times. That's quite significant. So his demonic possession was not a constant. He wasn't in the same state all the time. Sometimes he was more normal than others. And when he was lucid, he would seek help and he would be bound. And he would say, please help me so I don't go off and do what I was doing before. And they would chain him up. But then the demonic fits would come upon him again and he would break those chains. And it says he used to run around screaming and crying out. And you can just imagine how this would have affected all the people living in that area. You know, their children are waking up having nightmares because they can hear this demonically oppressed man letting out the most awful screams. And then he would go into the tombs. And there he would, where the dead bodies were, he would get in and lie and embrace and cuddle up to the rotting dead bodies in the tombs. This was a man, really a picture of somebody who the devil has just got such a hold on that it looks like there's absolutely no way out for him. But God heard his cries. And one of the keys to this is actually following on from something we were looking at in Mark chapter 3. Because if you'll remember, we were talking about where the disciples or the Pharisees were accusing Jesus of doing miracles by the power of Beelzebul or of Satan. And Jesus spoke about a demon as a strong man and says it needs somebody stronger. And Jesus was saying that he was the one who is stronger than Satan or any demon. And the word that Jesus used there for the strong man is the same word that is used here in Mark chapter 5 and verse 4 when it says no one was strong enough to subdue him. And so this is really following on. This is a demonstration of the fact that Jesus is stronger than any demonic force that can oppress our lives. And so somehow in the screaming of this man, God heard his cries and God sent Jesus to bring him deliverance and healing. And there's a great lesson here, because so often when there's something evil going on, men see a threat. Men heard the cries of this demon-possessed man and it made them afraid. It made them defensive. It made them want to chain him up. But God heard those cries and God sent his son to deliver him. Oh, may we as Christians be those who, when we see evil and when we see moral decay, do not get afraid, do not feel threatened, but instead we say, Jesus, come and bring deliverance. And verse 6. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. And he shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of the man, you impure spirit." One commentator, it's actually Alan Cole in the Tyndale New Testament commentaries, he says that When it says that he saw him from a distance, he draws a parallel with the wonderful parable of the prodigal son, that the prodigal son's father saw him from a distance and came running towards him because he wanted to welcome his son home. The demons saw Jesus from a distance and they came running towards him, but they came running begging for mercy because they didn't want to be cast out of this man. The demons recognized what the religious leaders of Israel could not, that Jesus was the Messiah, and that the Messiah, as the Apostle Paul would say, he came to destroy the works of the evil one. Jesus had spoken the word. Jesus had already said, come out of him. I mean, he'd said it while they were distant. No man could hear them. They were a long way off. Jesus gets out of the boat, looks at this poor demonized man in the distance and speaks the word, come out of him. And then the demon, a person wouldn't have heard that from that distance, but these demons, they know what's happening, and they come running and screaming and begging. Jesus had spoken the word, and they were like clinging on to their possession of this man, like being dragged out by the word of Jesus, and these demons are holding on by their fingernails. And then Jesus asked the man, verse 9, what is your name? My name is Legion, he replied, for we are many. And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. Now, some people have said, well, why did Jesus ask this question? Jesus, he's supernatural knowledge. Why would he ask the name of the demon? And some people have tried to say, well, that's what Jewish exorcists used to do, and therefore Jesus would have done the same. But Jesus didn't have to rely on the tricks and techniques of Jewish exorcists. But it may well have been so that those that were watching, the disciples and others, could understand the magnitude of the miracle that was taking place, that so many demons were being cast out. Or maybe Jesus was just calling the man back to himself. When he's out of control and it's impossible to even speak to the man beyond all the screaming of these demons, it's like Jesus says to him, what is your name? Getting past all that to try to bring the man to acknowledge the seriousness of his condition. And the man says, our name is Legion. My name is Legion, for we are many. Starts off singular, goes into plural. He's so mixed up, he's so confused, he's just all over the place, as we would say. And a legion was an army, a unit of the Roman army of 6,000 men. That doesn't necessarily mean he had 6,000 demons. The idea is that an army of occupation. Because the people of that area, this would be an everyday picture for them, seeing a legion of Roman soldiers with all their weapons and their armor and everything tramping along a road. It would speak of intimidation, it would speak of power. And by saying legion, it's saying we're all powerful, we're not going to be dislodged. Verse 11, a large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. And the demons begged Jesus, send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them. This actually tells us something, that demons are not omnipresent. Demons are not everywhere at the same time. One of the first three things that you learn about in theology of the nature of God is omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. God is everywhere at the same time. God knows everything, and God can do everything. He's all powerful. So he's all present, he's all knowing, he's all powerful. Demons are none of those things. Demons are not all knowing. Demons are not all powerful, and demons are not all everywhere. They're not omnipresent. And so they have to go from one physical location, they have to go to another physical location. And they said, send us among the pigs. Now, why would Jesus accede to this request? Why not just cast him into the pit of hell? Or why would he let this happen? Well, there's several reasons why this could be, but one possible reason was because Jesus wanted to minimize the violence of their departure. Jesus wanted to He knew, and we see often when people are cast out, when demons are cast out, even when Jesus cast them out, that they would shake the person who is demonized, and it would be a violent thing, and they would fall down almost as if they were dead. Well, if you've got a whole legion of demons inside this man, that could be very dangerous indeed. So Jesus, perhaps to minimize the violence of their departure, says, okay, off you go. So instead of trying to cling on, they rush out of this man into this herd of pigs. By the way, I once heard a preacher say, well, Jesus was doing this because pigs are unclean and he wanted to punish the Jewish people that were keeping pigs. But We're talking about the region of the Gadarenes. We're talking about the Decapolis. The Decapolis was not actually a region where many Jews lived. It was Gentiles. It was like a Gentile territory there that surrounded these 10 towns. And so most likely the people who owned these pigs would not have been Jews. They would have been Gentiles. So no, Jesus wasn't doing this to punish Jews for breaking the law. But most likely he allowed the demons to leave and enter the pigs to minimize the violence of them leaving the demon-possessed man. Verse 13. Jesus gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. And the herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. So the pigs were driven mad by the presence of demons and committed mass suicide. You know, God is a God of life. Satan brings death. Satan brings to destruction. As Jesus said, the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy. But I came that you might have life, and life in all its fullness. And that thus has been graphically illustrated in both the life of the man and what's happening with these pigs as well. Verse 14, those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and the countryside. And the people went out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man and told about the pigs as well. And then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. This is crazy. These people have an opportunity for miracles. They must have heard what's going on in Capernaum. They must have heard about demons being cast out, the blind seeing, the lame walking, people being healed of leprosy, all that sort of stuff. And now the one who worked these miracles is in their midst. And they beg him to go. They say, please leave. And actually, Jesus does what they ask him to do. You need to be careful what you pray for. You know, you can pray for something and have your prayer answered, even though it's a stupid thing for you to pray for. And here they're begging Jesus to leave. They valued their pigs over the miracles that they could have had. They valued the material prosperity that would come from the herds of pigs. They valued that over and above all the deliverance that Jesus could bring to their region. What a blessing that would have been. Verse 18. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. And Jesus did not let him, but said, go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis, the 10 cities, how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. Well, he wanted to be a witness. He wanted to be a witness, but he wanted to do it by being with Jesus and with his disciples. He wanted to stay with the one who had set him free. Maybe he was worried. Maybe he thought, once this man's gone, what if demons come back again? But God had a plan for him, and that plan was not for him to be one of the disciples. It was not for him to follow Jesus around everywhere. His job was to witness to the people in his area. When Jesus said, go home to your own people, he wasn't just talking about his immediate family. He was talking about the people of that region. He was talking about Gentile people. Just think about that, because sometimes we tend to think of it, well, Jesus was just reaching the Jewish people. The day of Pentecost was the Jewish people. And it's not until we get to Acts chapter 8, Acts chapter 10, that the gospel begins to go to Gentile, Samaritans and Gentiles and so on. And yet here in Mark's gospel, long before Jesus even went to the cross, this man has been sent out as a witness to his own people. And he is a witness all to the Decapolis, these 10 cities. Now, those 10 cities, it included Gadara, but it also included Damascus, the capital of Syria. And it also included Philadelphia. No, not that Philadelphia in the United States, nor the Philadelphia that's in the book of Revelation, but this is another city called Philadelphia, which is actually modern-day Amman, the capital of the country of Jordan, which of course is a neighboring country to Israel. And so this man went as a witness to Gentiles in this area of the 10 cities, telling them about Jesus. But why? Because the gospel was initially going to be preached among Jews, and it would take a while till it reached the Gentiles in the book of Acts. But Jesus was already letting people know that his proclamation of good news and his message of who he was were not just for the Jews, but were for the Gentiles as well. That brings us now to a very convenient break as Jesus and the disciples are just leaving that place. And there's so much more in Mark chapter 5, because what goes on here, they cross over to the other side, and we're going to hear about the healing of Jairus's daughter, and also the raising from the dead of Jairus's daughter, and also the healing of the woman who had an issue of blood. But just for now, we're going to bring it a halt, so we'll come back to that next week in episode 11 of Mark's Gospel. I'd invite you to join us then for Upon This Rock, your verse-by-verse Bible study from Solid Rock Drogheda. It's next week, next Wednesday, 7:30 p.m, same time, same place, 7:30 p.m. here in my study. I do hope you'll join me again then. God bless you in Jesus' name.